Go back to 2004. Think of at least 5 crossovers at the top of your head. Pretty hard, huh? 2004 Toyota Highlander Limited, one of the founders of the crossover segment. It started off way back 18 years ago in 2001 when the Highlander was born, also known as the Klugger. It featured a 203 horsepower 3-liter V6 paired to a 4-speed automatic and a base 155 horsepower 2.4-liter 4-cylinder. It started off as a 5-passenger SUV, but in 2004 Toyota added the optional 3rd row. Highlanders also had an optional full-time all-wheel drive system, pretty similar to the all-wheel drive system found in the Lexus RX 300 and the Toyota Sienna. The Highlander was tuned more for on-road performance, unlike its cousin, the 4Runner. 2004 also brought the all-new 3.3-liter V6 like in this one, which makes 230 horsepower, and it's paired to a 5-speed automatic transmission. 2005 brought the first ever 7-passenger hybrid vehicle, the Highlander Hybrid. It featured Toyota's hybrid synergy drive hybrid system paired to the same 3.3-liter V6, pretty similar to the Lexus RX 400h. 2007 brought the 2nd generation Highlander, and the 4-popper was discontinued for a few years, but it was actually revived in 2009. 2nd gen Highlanders got an even bigger 3.5-liter V6 that made 270 horsepower, and the 2nd gen Highlander also offered more creature comforts and technology such as a smart key access system found in more upper-end Toyota and Lexus products. It was slightly revised in 2011, and then in 2013 we got the all-new 3rd generation Highlander, which was even bigger and more technology such as some active safety systems like pre-collision braking, lane departure warning, and a blind spot monitor. They also bumped up seating to 8 instead of 7 like the previous gen Highlander, and then in 2017 the Highlander was slightly revised again, which brought a more powerful 295 horsepower direct injected 3.5-liter V6 from the Lexus RX 350, and then Toyota also added an 8-speed automatic to the Highlander as well. 2020 actually brought the all-new 4th generation Highlander, which is truly a class above what it is. The powertrain remained the same as the 3rd gen with the 295 horsepower V6, but for the Highlander it dropped the V6 for a 2.5-liter 4-cylinder paired to that hybrid system, just like in a Camry or Avalon hybrid. This particular Highlander is a 2004 limited V6 with front-wheel drive. The limited trim added these 17-inch alloy wheels, fog lights, automatic headlights, heated seats and mirrors, and then automatic climate control. This was back when SUVs actually looked like SUVs. The 1st gen Highlander has a boxy and upright look similar to the Honda Pilot of that era. I prefer these post-refresh Highlanders more than the 01 to 03 models. They had halogen headlights and fog lights. This one particularly is fitted in Oasis Green, a pretty attractive color. For those wondering, the Highlander has 7.3 inches of ground clearance, and its approach angle is 27 degrees and departure is 21 degrees. These Highlanders look short for a 3-row vehicle, and it really shows in the trunk. 10.5 cubic feet behind the 3rd row, 39 cubic feet behind the 2nd row, and 80 cubic feet with all rows folded flat. With the tailgate shut, the Highlander has a pretty vertical rear end, which is good so you could fit more stuff in it. The interior of the Highlander is simple but formal. This was the time when Toyota had a special type of quality. Everything that you'd touch actually feels like it was put there for a good reason. Highlander Limited gets a 4-spoke leather-wrapped steering wheel, pretty much identical to most mid-2000s Toyotas like the 4Runner, Camry, Sienna, pretty much everything Toyota. It's their family wheel. And then the gauges of the Highlander are pretty simple and easy to read. Nothing fancy, no digital screen or anything, but they're just there and you don't really have to look hard to see how fast you're going or what the fuel is or the RPMs or anything like that. Like I said earlier, the Highlander Limited does get automatic climate control. It's not dual zone, but you do get rear heat, but it is automatic. And you know, Pretty simple, just like anything mid-2000s, not that complicated. There's no menus or anything. It's just direct and straight to the point. Also, I'd like to mention that some Highlander Limiteds did get an optional navigation system, which was high-tech back then, but pretty dated now. But it's still nice to see, you know, a touchscreen nav in 2004, which was actually pretty interesting. Another thing I'd like to mention is the radio. So this one, since it is the Limited, has the JBL premium audio system, and it does also have a 6-disc CD changer and a cassette player. Haven't seen a cassette player in quite a long time. So down here you have the shifter for the 5-speed automatic, and behind that you have the buttons for the heated seat controls. It's just on or off. There's no levels, but you know, that's what the newer ones are here for. But the seats are very comfortable, honestly. I could drive this across the country and back, and my back would not bother me at all. And I really mean that. Just sitting in here, you just kind of sink in it. It feels like my grandma's big, comfortable chair. And you know, it's semi-supportive, but you know, it's a Highlander. It's nothing sporty. And I do also like that you get these armrests in the middle too. And then also in the middle of the two seats, you get two cup holders, which are pretty reasonably sized. And then a little center console here, which you could put CDs or anything that you want in there. You also have a pretty decently sized glove box too. The rear seat of the Highlander is actually pretty roomy too, at least for the second row. We'll talk about the third row in a second. You know, I have pretty decent leg room, and I can fit my feet under the seats. I'm really comfortable. There's also a center armrest here with two cup holders, and the armrest is, you know, nicely padded. I also have good headroom too. I'm nowhere near touching the ceiling with my head. Then you have map pockets behind the two front seats, and then you have two cup holders on the doors, which I think is an early 2000s SUV thing, because the Pilot has them too here, and I like that. It's just, you know, harder to spill, unless if you slam the door shut, but whatever. You also have a little bit of an ashtray, which is funny. That brings me back to, you know, the 2000s. And then underneath the ashtray you just get some storage underneath there. But overall, I really like the first and second row of the Highlander, but the third row is where things get interesting. So I'm going to try to get in the back here. So you use this little lever, which is handy, and then the seat slides up and forward. Then you can get in here, and I don't know how much you guys can see or will see, but let's just get in here. Ow. Okay, get the headrest. Okay, now let's try to get the seat forward, back. Oh, okay. So with the second row seat slid back, well, they don't really have a lot of room, but I don't really have a lot of room. If this seat is all the way back, my knees, well, you kind of have to sit sideways in here. It's not terrible. I mean, for the size of the way how the car looks, it's not that bad, but of course it's not going to be like a Suburban or a Yukon XL, but it's perfectly adequate for what it is. If you're familiar with modern Toyota V6s, this isn't that far off. This is a 3.3 liter 3MZ FE V6. It makes 230 horsepower and 242 pound-feet of torque, and that's going through a 5-speed automatic, and in this particular case, front-wheel drive. But you could get all-wheel drive, similar to the Lexus RX 330 and the Toyota Sienna. It's a 50-50 split all-wheel drive system, depending on if the wheels slip or whatever. As for fuel economy, you should be expecting about 19 in the city and 23 on the highway with the front-wheel drive V6 Highlander. So, we're on this kind of open stretch of road, so let's see. Wow, there's a little bit of torque steer. That's funny. It actually goes all right. I'm surprised. Like, it has some kick. But like I said, 230 horsepower, 240 some pound-feet of torque. Not that bad. Wow. It goes, like, and it's a good sounding engine. I love the sound of the engine. But there is a little bit of torque steer, which is maybe for some people you might be like, oh, I don't know, but it's just, there's a lot of torque. And it is interesting because I've driven an all-wheel drive Highlander, but not a front-wheel drive Highlander, so this is interesting, just interesting experience. Other than that, it rides really nice, especially for being a 2004. It's very comfortable. Now the steering, it's not sports car like. It is somewhat direct, but you don't feel too much from it, which, I mean, I'm not really complaining about that. And then the ride, we're on kind of some like swoopy parts of the road, and coming up ahead it's going to be a little bit curvy, but it actually drives pretty alright, especially being a 7-passenger family SUV. And you know, on some bumps that usually on other cars I've been on this road in, it floats. This car doesn't really float, it just takes the bumps pretty alright actually. And the engine, when you're just driving normally, pretty smooth, not that loud, just a little bit of vibration, but not that much to really be like, oh, that's annoying. Now, driving an 05 4Runner to this Highlander, pretty much of the same era, this drives so much better than the 4Runner, just on the road especially. The 4Runner felt a little bit wallowy and a little bit too soft. This one feels a little bit more car-like and more responsive, and I wouldn't be as afraid to, not purposely, but if I had to go around a corner pretty quickly, I wouldn't feel like I'm gonna lose my head. Now, like this corner, I'm not really pushing it whatsoever, but the steering is light. That's what I was trying to picture in my, well, the word I was trying to picture in my head. The steering is light. It's very effortless. You could just change, you could literally drive it with one finger. Well, just quite honestly. But I like it. It's perfect for being a family SUV because it's not supposed to be hard to drive at all. Now, around this corner, didn't even come close to pushing it, but yeah, of course there's a little bit of lean and roll, but that's kind of to be expected. It's not like the sportiest in its segment, like a few years ahead there would be the CX-9 or something like that. When you're just driving normally, the engine is just buttery smooth. That's just what Toyota engines are known to be. Well, V6 Toyota engines especially, just buttery smooth, doesn't feel like it's straining itself. Now, oh my god, if this was a 2.4 liter Highlander, I don't know how slow that would be. Just, I really feel like a small engine in a big car, you might get good mileage with it, but I don't think it's worth it to have that extra strain of the engine. Now, let's see, this one, kind of a swoopy is the best word I could think of, but swoopy turn, not that bad. There's nothing really sharp on this road, but this is no canyon carver. Okay, here we go again. There's some wheel slip. That's not floored. But it goes alright. Like, it picks up fine, especially for a 2004 crossover. Now, all these 300 horsepower, sometimes even more SUVs are not overpowered, but I don't see why, like, who needs 400 horsepower in an 8-seater SUV? I mean, I'm not going to be drag racing BMW M3s with my Explorer ST or whatever. Highlanders are known to be one of the most bulletproof 3-row SUVs out there, but like any other used car, there's always some things to look out for. For Highlanders that have over 100,000 miles, it's good to look at all the major suspension and steering components like sway bars, tie rods, all that kind of stuff. And then also for V6 models, it's good to check if the timing belt and water pump has been serviced, but 4-cylinder Highlanders have timing chains. A front-wheel drive 2004 Highlander Limited V6 would run you just under 30 grand brand new, but you could find a clean first gen from $3,000 to $7,000 now.